Okay, so in our first video we talked about the bow itself. Now we're going to talk about some of its components. So the first thing we'll talk about is the string here. This is just the stock string. You can buy the expensive strings. You can buy separate strings if you want. I don't find anything wrong with the strings that are on it. I will say if you have your bow for more than a couple of years, even after a year, you're going to want to re-wax the strings. So you put wax on them so they don't dry out. And you can put little silencer rubber things on there. And I shoot fingers, so I don't have a release loop. Otherwise you would need a release loop. Got a little kisser button here. Obviously your peep. I highly recommend shooting with a peep. And yeah, that's kind of it. Peeps are nice, they're cheap. Your kisser button's pretty cheap. Silencers, you can get whatever kind you like. I just have these little rubber ones. I'm not like overly concerned with my bow being whisper quiet. Yeah, strings aren't crazy expensive, but at the same time you don't really need to have extras unless you're shooting every day, all the time. And just make sure you're taking care of them. Always check them for little frays and things like that. Make sure that they're not dried out. Have your pro shop look at it if you don't feel like you're comfortable enough doing it. And so yeah, that's kind of the thing with the string and cables, is make sure that they're all in good order, make sure that they're not dried out and that they're still strong, because last thing you want to do is have your string break, especially when you're in the woods. I guess I'll include the cams in this. So Matthews is known for their solo cam, which means it has one cam and then it just has a wheel on the other end. Hoyt and some of the other companies, they have cam and a half. Some of them have double cams. I personally just don't like the double cam or the cam and a half because I feel it gives you a harder rollover when you get to that let off point in the draw. Sometimes when guys are shooting, what can happen is their cams become out of alignment or out of tune. You don't really get that a ton with the Matthews because there's only one cam. But when you get into the bows that have cam and a halves or double cams, the cams cannot roll over at the same time. They can become out of tune just because they kind of slip on the string a little bit. And that actually happened to my brother. His two cams weren't rolling over at the same point. And a way you can kind of combat that is right here you have white. I have white marks on my cams, so I can just look at it and say, yep, there's white marks, they're lined up, that's right where it needs to be. So that's another, just a little helpful thing is if you have a bow that does have cams, which everybody does unless you're shooting recurve or longbow, mark them where they are on the risers when you know your bow is shooting well, because then you know it's in line. And if you start to not shoot well and you feel like your release is good and you feel like everything else is good and you can't figure it out, and it's kind of a sporadic not shooting well, one's high, one's low, one's left, one's right, and you have a couple people watch you shoot and they don't feel like it's your form, always check the cams. They're kind of a hidden difficulty with archery. So that's a little bit about cams. Other than that, I don't know a ton about them. Just kind of before you go hunting, inspect them, make sure that they're all good, they're tight, there's no cracks, dings, anything like that that's going to significantly impact your bow. But don't sleep on the cams. They can cause some real headaches when you're practicing and when you're just not shooting one. You can't figure out why. Sometimes it's the cams, they just come out of tune. The guys at your local pro shop will definitely know more about that and kind of how to realign it. Usually what happens is they'll just take the string off, align the cams, and restring the bow. But hopefully you guys found that helpful, talking about the string and your cams. I guess I should mention one more thing. You have these little knot crimps. That's where you would put your arrow. Like I said, I shoot fingers, so I only have the one and then my biscuit here. So if you were to shoot a release, you'd have a release loop here. You can buy those at the store real cheap. One thing that is nice is you can put those on. You can put your peep sight on by yourself with $20 worth of stuff for all of it, and you can do it all yourself, which is kind of nice. So that makes bow maintenance easy. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video about the string and cams. Just a little bit more about the bow anatomy, I guess you could say. And if you like this video, be sure to like, comment. If you guys have something you want to see or something you want to say, be sure to hit subscribe and stay tuned for our next video. Thanks.